Okay, we're good. There we go. I'll open the December 14th City Council work session. This we need approval of the agenda. So moved.
Second?
All in favor? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I have to open with our public comment. There's anybody online? A or D? Okay, we will move to our one and only and primary topic, it's our school presentation. Turn it over to Dustin.
Great. Well, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to be here. Always reminded of how beautiful this place is. I got here half hour early and took a stroll out on the beach and took a picture for my wife, and she's like, "Oh, we got a frame." So we've got new council members tonight, and that's really exciting. So I'm just gonna kind of reiterate who I am and what we're doing here. So my name is Dustin Johnson. I'm a principal architect at Cedar Architects and Engineers. Maya is my cohort. She's our principal director of interiors at CETA. And this is the Cannon Beach Elementary Rejuvenation Project. And I'll give you a little bit of a rundown of where we've been and where we are today. So we've gone through our programming phase this past spring and summer. And then towards the end of the summer till today and beyond today, we are what we call our schematic design phase, where we actually get to put the paper, start designing this facility based on information that we gathered from our stakeholders in the programming phase. So we divided up the schematic design phase into 3 stages. The first stage was kind of about showing the public stakeholder and the city council, based on what we heard, this is what the project could be. And moving into the second phase, which is the phase that we are wrapping up now, we've had a concerted effort to collaborate with the tribe and make sure that their voice is being heard and the project is being represented in a way that is consistent with their values. And then, so this past phase, we did that, but it was focused mostly on site design as well as building layout. As we move past tonight, our goal is to head into phase 3 of schematic design, and that's going to focus more on the exterior aesthetics of the architecture. And again, we have a coordination meeting with the tribe this Friday to go over that. And then we'll have another meeting with the tribe based on that conversation. And then we'll present to you and in a community outreach event along with to the public stakeholder as far as what those efforts are. For tonight we're going back to our community outreach event number 5, which was a couple of weeks ago. From that outreach event, there were a couple of loose ends that we wanted to tie up and get approval on tonight as we move into away from the site design and away from the building layout and more into the architectural aesthetics. And those 2 things were another option for where we could locate the amphitheater pavilion so that we have covered shelter at the amphitheater, but so that it is located strategically, not to be, there's a sensitive view corridor there, and I'll pull it up on my screen. I'd like to make sure that we get out of that to preserve that view corridor for patrons of the site using other parts of the site. And then the other main design change or update we're going to talk about tonight, and I think it's going to be the one we focus the majority of our time on, is how that interior core between the gym and the classroom building functions. And I won't go into too much detail. I'm super excited about this presentation tonight because I don't have to do all the talking. I get Maya's going to run through those space plan options for you. So I think with that, I will go ahead and share my screen. Get back to. So this is what you all had seen last time. So we've got the amphitheater up here in the top left-hand corner of the screen. You see these black arrows leading off to either side of the amphitheater. That is our view corridor that we would like to preserve. And this dark shaded area on the north side of that what we're calling the storytelling circle, is a covered pavilion. And that pavilion, it has a couple of key functions to it. One is that if there is something going on, a performance, any type of verbal arts, that our community of disabled persons or elderly are able to join that function and give them a place out of the weather to be able to do that. So we're proposing a ADA compliant path that would lead from the north courtyard out to that spot. The other function is, if it is, our typical coastal weather and maybe a little drizzly and maybe a little windy, that if there's a performance scheduled for that night, that we move the band or the artist into that covered shelter, give them power, and they can perform in there while others are in the story circle around a campfire. And perhaps we have visitors out in the driftwood landscape that we talked about last time. That is kind of at the periphery of the story circle. So that was the location we proposed, this one at COE number 5. The other location we thought made sense was down here to the south of the storytelling circle. There are pros and cons of both. One thing to consider is weather. Another thing to consider is where the sun is in the sky at the times that we believe this would be used for its intended purpose. And then again, just trying to keep it out of that view corridor. So I have to lean, I think, a little bit more on you locals who can really know from a microclimate standpoint how weather is entering this site and what we need to look out for in terms of exposure to people under the shelter and to artists and equipment. If north of the circle or south of the circle from that standpoint would make more sense. Maybe we can just have an open conversation, hear thoughts about that, and put this one to bed before we move into the real challenging one, which is going to be the
real exciting one.
Sorry, the real exciting one. So some of the concerns we heard last time with it being on the north side would be that we're more exposed to weather on that side. So it's quite possible that in detrimental, significantly poor weather, we wouldn't be able to host events for that purpose, that it would not be useful.
I consider that kind of a given. In our most inclement weather, an outdoor event just usually doesn't happen. Something would probably happen inside, the gym or the classroom. One thing I did want to mention about the path that you mentioned an ADA compliant path.
Yeah.
When that original path was put in, that was an issue in that I'm not sure which state regulating body wouldn't allow that to be paved. It had to be the surface that it is now.
So it had to be that bark chip.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. That's good to know. Usually it can't be paving. A lot of times they'll do that for reasons of they don't want an impervious surface to be incorporated in, like in this case, a riparian area.
Mm-hmm.
But we might be able to get away with compacted gravel. So there's no cementitious material in it. It's just gravel. Does not technically meet ADA requirements, but it can be done so that people in a wheelchair can access across that path.
And when you mentioned that path, you showed a picture and it was just going straight out to it from the building, right?
On the original.
First one.
On the original,
More or less, right? That's that gray.
yeah, more or less. So it kind of starts out heading a little bit to the west and then hooks north. So the idea there being that everyone would use the same path getting to the story circle, and then the ADA portion kind of wraps around that circle heads up to the shelter. One thing I would mention too is we did show too far into the trees. The idea would be that this would be a longhouse type structure with fence pole type foundation. So we're sticking timbers down into the ground where it's not a huge ground disturbance. There's no concrete pad or anything that way. But we think that the idea is to get it as close into those trees without being harmful to those trees.
I like the second one because your view isn't encumbered.
This does leave
Yes.
that wide open. There is definitely a proximity issue with this one in order to keep it out of that view corridor. You see how the view corridor there's more space to the south of that circle within the view corridor. The view corridor basically terminates at the edge on the north side. So we're able to keep in that first option, if we're just thinking view corridor, we can get that shelter closer to the center of activity and being located outside of that view corridor than we can in the second option. So that would be one con, if you will, of that second option.
The consideration of the weather is more, in my mind, the sun. And actually for hot weather, so that the band is not right in the sun the whole time. Or in whatever other case, the handicapped folks have a shadier spot to put them. The idea of if it's raining enough for the band to play in shelter, I don't think the people are going to sit out in the rain. So it's what we've run into, I think, at the band shell at the city park.
Yeah, exactly. The shows just get canceled.
And it's almost more of a feature for them to be focused toward rather than I guess I'm a little more impressed with the southern location. Primarily because I know bands and they would like it to be closer for their equipment because they go back and forth a lot. Plus the handicapped access is not as invasive of the circle. So the gravel walkway or whatever treatment we would need. And in that case, you could also use the lane and maybe curl around and have the handicapped access a little shorter even from behind. I've always liked the northern location because of being in the audience. You can see who's in the music if the sun is to the south, where it normally is. But also you have to consider most events are going to be in the evening. So it's going to be over to the east or the west that way. So I don't know. It's almost a toss up to me until I have a little more detail of the slope of the ground, how the circle works. Another idea I'd had worked out at one point was not so much of a structure, but as a place to put a structure and then have a temporary structure that we could pack away during the winter. It wouldn't be that big, just could be a little band shell kind of thing. That's a different idea. One concern that popped up when you mentioned the idea of a place for handicap to go, and also being a band, you got two level differences that you got to worry about.
Right.
It wouldn't be too hard to have it at ground level and then bring in a platform for a band or because we're going to be needing that elsewhere anyhow. So that's an option. So I guess I'm a toss up between which one would be best. Again, I'm probably leaning a little towards the southern one because I think the design of with the flavor of a longhouse would fit better in that southern area. You got a little more area to work with.
I'm just curious. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Lisa.
Oh, I was just gonna say, the northern one aesthetically is, to me, is more pleasing, but the southern one is much more practical. And the northern one also, what bothers me is it sort of, that's a beautiful area there along the river and, you know, and I just think it's more invasive of the natural beauty of the place and stick a longhouse there, and I'd rather see it in the southern.
That's what I was trying to say. I'm a little curious as to why you have the ADA path just to the band shell and not to, there's no access for, I would say, for disabled to go up to the story circle or to the other circle that you have. You just have it to the band shell.
Yeah, and I think that was probably a miss on our part. I think in these options, how they're presenting tonight, the one good thing about this option of having the shelter on the north is that you are able to get to that storytelling circle on that ADA path. I think in this one here, we would revise this so that that ADA path continues to the circle at the fork. So it,
Yeah.
you know, I don't think there's any reason, you know, not to do that.
Are you still thinking of the circle as being something? Is it partially below grade?
No, actually, so we worked through this with the Clatsop Nahalem tribal members, and one thing that was important, they had some examples of a storytelling circle that could hold approximately 35 to 40 people. It was important to them that this was actually a step up into the circle as opposed to a step down into the circle. The particular examples we were shown were circles that were, they used stone for seating. We probably envisioned some of that with this, but probably more on the driftwood. But natural materials for seating. But their examples also had a lot of tall vegetation surrounding the story circle, which made it feel more like a storytelling circle. But a challenge that we have here is the public stakeholder and you all that would also like to see this be used as an amphitheater. So we have to be thinking about how this can function as a 30 to 40 person storytelling circle, but how can we expand and be a nice, pleasant experience? How can we also expand that out to accommodate 100, 150 people in a band? Right.
So what I hear you saying is that it may be several feet above the ground.
It's just a couple of feet.
Okay.
A couple of feet. And then what we're showing, we talk a lot about creating borders and in between spaces on this project. A lot of times that's where the magic happens. In this particular one, we do have a berm. We're showing a built up berm in between the storytelling circle and Neck Use Park. And this is, again, another couple of feet of separation, but with trees and some taller vegetation there as well. It's not a wall. The idea is still that you have a physical, but not a full visual separation between the turf play area at Neck Use Park and then the amphitheater. And then the area surrounding the story circle. We talked about stopping. We call it a driftwood landscape. And we're actually out on the beach yesterday. We're looking actively for driftwood during king tide season to harvest, able to take to the site and modify so that it can be used as, but oriented in a very organic way. I'm actually really excited about this.
We were scoping them out this morning when we passed you on the beach.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a really neat feature on this site.
I've got a question. Because the pathway that leads to the shell on the south, same pathway, is that rerouted? Is that a little farther east right now that pathway trail goes through the wooded area.
It is, and if you look closely, and sorry, it's so hard to see, but I'm going to zoom in here. Kind of see this double line running through here. That's the current location of that path.
Okay,
So it's a very linear geometric path. And that was one thing that we coordinated with the tribe on was how do we want the user to really experience that space so that there isn't this hard edge where on one side of the path you have play turf area and on the other side of the path is pristine riparian area. Let's take this path, let's create little spurs, let's weave it in and out and make it feel just a little more natural.
In the drawing where you have welcoming man,
Yeah, welcoming man is right up.
is that in its current location?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then there's also a basalt stone feature. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but where that arrow is pointing. And that's another thing that, does it make sense to move that in this design? It might be a little too close to that storytelling function. We might want to put that up to where the trail splits. But easy to do. That one's. And you'll hear us say this with the space plan concepts as well. I think you've got two winning ideas here. It's just which one do you want to implement? And if we want to think about this, we don't have to put this to bed right now, too. We can move to the building layout portion of tonight's presentation and then we can revisit this.
Come back to it. Okay.
Okay. Hey, I get to turn it over to you.
But you still get to draw.
I'll drive for you.
Unless you don't want to.
I'll drive for you.
You want to do any of the summary of what got us here, or you want me to just dive right in? Okay. So what we had seen last time kind of led us through this path to have this lobby at the existing classroom building. And what we were proposing was you're going to need a vestibule at the gym building just for the size and just to have that kind of climate break. So what we were proposing on this scheme here from the last session was having those two lobby vestibule functions connect so that you had that versatility that they could be an overflow, jointly, they could be used separately. But some of the feedback that we had on that was, well, maybe that works, but the kitchen seems too small now. So we've shown a few options where we have like a full commercial size kitchen. We've shown a couple different versions of catering kitchens. And then with this iteration, that was kind of the overwhelming thing that we walked away from last time was, well, let's relook at that kitchen. And is it really having that connection? Is it really worth sacrificing the size and what the functionality of that kitchen might be? So with that, these two options that we have for you tonight are just going ahead and expanding that kitchen to take that footprint of what we had proposed as that gym vestibule and just letting the vestibule to the gym be what it is. So people would come into the gym through that for those functions or go through the main lobby for the other functions. And where we kept the connection between those two buildings is from the main lobby space. So you see those double doors there between the pink and the green. So you do still have the connection from the gym over into the large lobby. So you could have the overflow, but you don't have to have it. And if you zoom into the kitchen itself, I'll talk a little bit more about what that provides for you. So this version, I'm showing you just a little bit more detail. I'll talk about more of the function and the components that would go into it. Actually, even showing you kind of service carts where trash bins might be. So you can kind of start to think about how it might be used and the things that are like, oh yeah, where are we going to put that? So what you see along the top side there, between the gym and the kitchen, that whole service counter kind of does an L shape down. And you have a window out into the gym, but you also have a window out into the lobby. So again, you could serve one or the other or both, depending on how big of a people you're trying to accommodate. So that's got, workspace all along that side. And then down towards the front of the building, we've got a couple of nice big refrigerators. Again, all of this stuff is meant to be residential sizes and standards. And none of this is like a crazy commercial kitchen where you go in, you're like, oh my God, what do I do with that? So you've got 2 fridges, you've got 2 microwaves, you've got a standard double bowl sink, a standard dishwasher. It does have an ice maker right there next to it. So we've kept all the plumbing together as well. This one does allow for a fairly large island in the center too. And it's got all kinds of circulation around that island. So really this one has 48 inches clear in between the work counters and the island. So you could actually have people back to back working. You couldn't have somebody squeeze by past that without a whole lot of stepping in, but that's ample room for, a standard catering kitchen. The other option still maintained that vestibule connection to the lobby. And what this did is we bumped the line of this catering kitchen, gym entry space into the gym a bit. And I honestly can't remember. I think it's like 3 or 4 feet into the gym space. But you can see that you still have the number of seating. It's just the circulation around that space within the gym just gets a little bit tighter. This again would allow you to either open that double door between the lobby and the vestibule so that you have a free flow of traffic in through there. Or again, close it so it's all separate. And then again to the kitchen. So again, this is going to have the same kind of components. It's just a little squeezed in. So it doesn't have as large of an island. It doesn't have as much of space between the counter and the island. It's just got your standard 36, which is just an average kind of a kitchen space. But it's got the same components as far as your hot plates, your couple of fridges, your dishwasher, double sink. But on this one, I wound up moving your ice machine into the island. Again, I'm trying to think of that ice maker being, just people coming in and out and feeding other areas. So trying to make it so you don't have to come fully into the kitchen necessarily, kind of a quick access. And then tucked behind the door, there is another work surface. There's a whole lot of lines going on in there. So it might be a little hard to see, but it's basically a work counter with open below. So you can tuck your parts and storage and stuff underneath it. And then the microwaves would be in the upper cabinets up above that. So you still have a nice clean counter space, workspace, as well as storage below and the appliances above.
How many people do you anticipate as a maximum for the gym as far as seating? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, we had that number once and I feel like it was 120 something. And this might be a few tables shy of that. So it can be more than 120.
12 chairs on there.
Does it say it? Oh, okay. So there you go. So if you read what I wrote on there that apparently I forgot I wrote on there. And to your point, actually, part of the reason that I did put that on there, at one point we were discussing storage and, where are we putting the things that we need for these functions? So the reason it's quantified there is when you look at these other storage rooms, which again was shown last time. I don't know that we really hit on it too in depth, but the storage rooms that are off to the side, all of those tables are meant to kind of nest and fold together, and then the chairs stack. So you can see that whole gym could be emptied out by putting it in these storage rooms. And then you can have your recreation happen in there. So.
I do know that when I've done catering and I've also had a restaurant, and if you're going to be serving that many people at once, you're going to need to have the larger space because everyone wants everything hot and at the table immediately. So you're going to have, I would think, maybe 4 servers or 5.
And that's the other question, like if you're going to have your servers come in and take food and go out, or are you gonna have your staff in the kitchen and the servers are just coming up to the service counter, right? And they're just orders up, just like you start handing stuff out and they just go that way. So in that respect, you wouldn't have the 4 servers plus the kitchen staff in the kitchen together. They would just be kind of coming in, grabbing, up to the window and going. So this option that we're looking at, you've got 27 lineal feet of counter space. The other one is quite a bit more. It's 41 lineal feet of counter space. And that does include, like I said, that large island, which is kind of like a double-sided island. So you could have cabinets back to back underneath that you've got all kinds of storage and other things.
So there's a couple of points that I would like to just kind of make, and I say it at every event that I talk at with you all. And I do apologize for that. But part of our job is to make sure we don't yet know exactly how this is going to function, what types of events. So it's important as your designers that we're thinking about giving you a flexible space as much as possible while still meeting your goals and not precluding options moving forward. Okay. So if we look at this option, one drawback that this has for me is that this is a nice, beautiful, big kitchen, but it precludes the option of connecting the gym vestibule and the lobby from functioning as a single pre-function space. That is off the table. To do that, you'd be demoing the kitchen if that was something that appealed, in the future, that was something you wanted, versus in this option, you have the connection between the lobby and the gym vestibule. If how it is being used demands a larger kitchen, that can be accommodated. This scheme, it's an additive process to create this other scheme from the scheme where you have the connected lobby and gym vestibule. So I'm kind of thinking about it in that way. And there are also other ideas that have come in since our last meeting that are really neat and beautiful ideas about how the spaces can be set up. And again, this is schematic design. And while, yes, we are asking for your approval to move forward with one option tonight, we still want you to understand that this is schematic design. And when budget numbers start coming in, we're going to be revisiting stuff. We're going to be pushing and pulling throughout the rest of schematic design and into design development. This is not the final, it's going to look like this. But what we do expect is, okay, the kitchen is going to be roughly this size and located in this spot. And yeah, we're going to leave the gym vestibule in the lobby open for a connection so they can be used as the one in the same pre-fund space if that is needed. Or no, let's go ahead and go with the bigger kitchen for now. And that's not an important thing. We don't see it being used. So let's pour those resources into the larger kitchen. Those are the kinds of decisions we want, we're hoping will be made tonight. But again, the details don't need to be decided right now. The number of toilets in each restroom or lavatories, all that stuff is not set in stone based on your approval to move forward with one of these schemes tonight.
Personality classrooms.
Yeah, this has 3 with the idea that by creating the larger lobby space in the center, it can become its own space for whatever purpose, for exhibit, for classroom, pre-function, you name it.
Were you also considering a teaching kitchen?
We had a teaching kitchen in some of the previous schemes, but we just were not hearing the support for it from. So part of the programming phase, right, was to collect information and to make sure that, one voice, one vote kind of thing. We were trying to make sure that it was a level playing field out there. And we just were not hearing that a teaching kitchen was a high priority to the public stakeholder.
I thought that was for the food bank and also for the Native Americans for their interests.
The Clatsop Nehalem tribe did not have that interest in a teaching kitchen. And Barb, please speak to this, but my understanding is from a food bank standpoint that it would probably just not be used.
Yeah.
I think so. Even though it sounds like a wonderful idea. Getting our clients there on, for something that they have to sign up for is very difficult for them.
Well, so couldn't you just use the existing kitchen, the teaching kitchen, if you wanted to? I mean, what would be the problem? You don't have stoves, you have hot plates, right? Is that part of the?
Being at the food pantry?
No, I'm talking about
Oh,
with here.
So I was actually going to say that as well, to think about the flexibility of it, for all intents and purposes. And to me, a catering kitchen and a teaching kitchen, as far as the physicality of it, is not that different,
Yeah.
really.
Mhm.
And again, as long as you have the space to move around, because oftentimes what we've done is when it becomes a teaching kitchen, those hot plates get put out on the island, right? And then the participants are just kind of lining the room and watching the instructor
Mhm,
on the island. So for any of these, you could, if you so found that would be a need, you could do that.
Yeah,
Depending on which size you do, obviously that's going to help decide how many people might be in that class, but possible.
I would expect that, sorry, Lisa. I would expect that the lobby is going to be used as a lobby in most cases. And the only reason that the other gym entrance would be if there is an event going on, just having access. I don't necessarily see the need for kind of a second smaller lobby. The larger kitchen with the pass-through windows really looked functional to me. And you mentioned standard dishwasher, fridge. So we're not talking about walk-in.
No.
We're not talking about commercial dishwasher.
Correct. Just an under counter fridge. It would all be ADA height. So you need an ADA dishwasher, but it's 2 inches shorter than
I think we should have a design so that those things could happen eventually. The commercial dishwasher is probably more of an immediate need
mhm.
to me. You need the 2-minute cycle, not, an hour cycle.
I was gonna have a follow-up question actually, Tira. Maybe I should go sit over there. And are we precluding these options with this design? Because I see in that southwest corner of the catering kitchen being able to accommodate a walk-in freezer or a walk-in cooler. Maybe not both.
My gut reaction is not really. I think those elements start to take up a pretty big footprint. Seeing Bruce over here with his hand up. I think some of that also is a facilities question that we have talked about a few times on, if we're going to provide these things and what are we going to do? And I don't know if you all have those answered yet either. Do you want to?
Stepping back a little bit. When we're talking about the kitchen, I really haven't heard about what kind of an event, and I forgot who always said we need to think about what events we're going to have and then design to that. Myself, can you scroll down so you can see the relative mass of the gym and everything else, or screen out or something?
There you go. There you go.
Okay, you look at that space. And we talk about being for community and all those kind of things. If we are designing this so that you can have weddings in the gym, I start to have a little bit of trouble with that, because at that point, I think we go into the kind of the wedding business. We have a wedding facility. We will bring to that location potentially as many people as on the rest of the campus. And the way that the gym is designed, the event can flow outside. There's a lot of issues as far, and there are solutions, but I wouldn't have that set up and then have a family come in, have a big wedding and say they'll clean up. I wouldn't trust that. The other thing, my wife has been doing weddings and things. And she says that if we put something like this in, it'll be busy all the time. I go, what do you mean? Well, I'm doing weddings on Fridays and Mondays and all this because people can't get in to the other locations on the weekend or whatever. So if we make this and it's below the cost, it's below market cost, a lot of people would want to come. Hey, we could have this beautiful, can and beef. And they've got this big space and a commercial kitchen and all these things. And it's like, is every, not every day, but maybe about 3 days a week, maybe 4 days on the summer, are we going to have a wedding competing with everything else we're putting in? No, that's my point, Jan. Yeah, that's my point. Is that, and again, then we make sure we don't have 7 days of weddings and it just be kind of known as the chapel or something. We would have to charge enough so that we weren't taking business away, or we were just bringing people in from everywhere to have a wedding. So when we're looking, or when I'm looking at what we're talking about for the kitchen and all, I'm saying you probably that kind of thing would be appropriate for something for 120 seats or whatever. But do we want that? And if we want it, we're probably going to be the best deal around. And so it'll be extremely busy. And so it'll be the Indian Village and Matrimony Center. And I don't see those in any kind of ideas I've had about what might be able to happen here. I never saw where, weddings could potentially become a major item. Sure, it's like would give us a lot of money, but I just don't see. I'm very invested in the issue with the tribes and all the things that have been going on around. But I find in my mind that the wedding competes with that. So I would, anyway, that's my thought. And so if we're not looking at weddings, then I wouldn't necessarily be so much into, what happens with the kitchen and making it bigger and all of that, because you do that because you want to bring in, 120 people, but they're not coming for the park. They're not coming for, Nakus. They're coming for a wedding.
And I have a question, because when you talked about the space from the vestibule into the lobby, you seem to like that idea a lot of the connection. And I want you to tell me what you like about that.
Excuse me. In this particular scheme, as opposed to this one that we showed you, excuse me, last week, a couple of weeks back, there's enough space in that gym vestibule and enough of an opening between the two that they could be open to one another and function together as a pre-function space. And by pre-function space, we mean a space for people to congregate outside of a main event where they can get drink and food and socialize before they head in.
You seem to think that that's just a better aesthetic for the floor.
Not necessarily. And I apologize if I present it that way. What I like about this scheme is that we're not locking you into anything at this time. So it gives the community a chance to breathe, to see how are we going to use this space. And then if it does turn out that we're holding these types of events that could use a larger kitchen, yes, it's a nuisance. It's another pot of money. It's another time. You don't have you remobilizing a contractor to do that. The option is there. But if we start off with the big kitchen that we don't necessarily know if it's going to be needed, because we don't necessarily know for sure what kinds of events are going to be in here, we're taking the other option off the table.
Right. And I agree with what Bruce said about the matrimony center. That's certainly not how I ever envisioned this place as being a place for weddings.
Well, that's just a management.
Drive-through weddings now.
That's just a management thing.
Banquets, festivals.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think we have to be a wedding venue,
No,
but we do want to have.
Robin has stated it is a management problem, not a space use problem.
But
I see
Because
Nike
the management can
coming.
very easily say, we only do 12 weddings a year.
Yeah.
Boom, done. That's all we do. And stick with it. That's the
Mhm.
problem. They have to stick with it, even though it might be a moneymaker. They could just say, this is all we do. And if you want to schedule for 2028, you're welcome to. That's the thing is,
And I think,
I came from an event today where we were desperately looking for this size of facility. The League of Oregon Cities is trying to plan for something. I went to that. It was eye-opening. And the fact that even Seaside can't handle that other than what they're doing at the conference center. And what they're looking for is outside of the conference center.
Sam, can you elaborate on that just a little bit?
So I guess,
What exactly are they looking for? Just meeting space?
yeah, they were actually looking for 150 seat venue.
Okay,
I think we talked them out of that, but I'll get to that later to go to the order. The thing is that, and I've been holding my tongue because I've got a lot of issues and I know this is a design process. And so I sent you some stuff. I don't know if you got it. There's one concern for me, working with the kitchen specifically, is that I believe that most of our medium to smaller sized events that are going to want food are going to be in the classrooms, not in the gym. So one of the problems is you're going to have pickleball players in the gym while you need food in the classrooms for a gallery reception. That's going to be the kind of events that I think are going to be predominant. The larger events are going to happen. They're going to be big. They're going to be harder to accommodate, but there's going to be fewer of them. So we're not going to be having 150 people continually or constantly. Most likely, the gym is going to be the athletic things during the day and events that are weekenders. Whereas during the week, you might have classroom stuff where you're going to want to have some food. And in this layout, you've got to walk through the gym around and about to get to the classrooms. That gets to be a challenge. The other aspects I have about the kitchen in both this one and the larger version, you only have one door in. Especially if you've got service of any kind, you're going to have 2 doors. The other thing is accessing it for the, if the catering unit is using it, they're going to be preparing the food offsite, bringing it to the kitchen. And thus you've got to go again, back around through the gym to get in there. The larger classroom had the potential to have a door to the exterior. So that would be an important bonus if I actually went that way. I wouldn't. I would also consider maximizing the gym space rather than maximizing the excessive amount of restrooms that I seem just concerned about. The vestibule in the classroom in that area. I'd rather have more light green than those. So making that more efficient there, I think there is a whole lot of more interesting stuff that can happen in that end of the gym. The other thing about the gym that I'm concerned about is if we were to have a speaker type event or a music event, where you want a focus. If the focus is on the north end and we have a glass wall or a lot of windows on that side, so you have the view, during the day, you're going to be looking at a silhouette. And my first reaction, if I was putting on an event, I would swap the ends and have the stage or the podiums on the south side. But you've got a door right smack in the middle of the south wall of the gymnasium. That's a detriment to that space. I would spread that so you have at least doors on either side of that, or entry to that is a little different. More, I'm sure.
So if you wouldn't mind, I do want to speak to the toilet rooms because it was brought up last time as well that there was conversation about, is this too many? Is this not enough? So this is literally showing only 2 more than are required per code, given an assembly usage. So it's not like we've gone crazy with the toilet rooms. It's just a little bit more than what would be required. And I think the reality of if you have that many people and if there's an intermission or a break or whatever, I feel like what's shown makes sense for trying to get people in and out. I actually also feel like it makes sense as far as where they're allocated for the gym versus the classroom building, because if the gym is booked with people, they're going to want to get in and out there. And then the classroom has, they're dedicated. And I don't know that we've really pointed it out with everybody here, but we have the 2 that we're proposing as a beach access, which we have gone back and forth internally about, do we provide it? Do we not provide it? So there's pros and cons on that. Our concern in not providing a beach access toilet room is that if anybody knows there are bathrooms in this building, they're going to come inside and use them. So let's just say, look, you have sandy feet, whatever, use these bathrooms, let's not track that all into the building itself. Now, again, things are going to happen, but anything we can do to try to help avoid some of those conflicts or issues is why we're showing this.
Speaking as a female, Sam,
Mhm.
can't have too many bathrooms. Fine for an hour to use the restroom, really do.
No, and I managed like 2 million square feet. We didn't have any place that had enough bathrooms. And it was always women that are standing outside in the line. And so if you don't want them to rip your face off after this bill, I would put in more bathrooms, not take any out.
I just, the fact that the bathrooms are so spread out in this layout, if you combine them all into one central area, you actually have more bathroom in a more efficient space.
Yeah, but
You have less square footage with more bathroom.
that would not allow you probably to use the gym for one event at the same time that you're using the classrooms in the other area for another event. Don't
That's.
want them together, separate.
You're spot on, and that's exactly why we have them separated. So this diagram here we showed at the last COE just as a sampling of how this space could be divided up for use by different sized events. And again, broken record me, versatility. Our job at this stage of design is to give a flexible, adaptable space that can be used for any number of sized events. And part of that is we have literally two separate buildings right now, and we've landed on, okay, we're going to connect them with this lobby space. But why not have it so that you can have them function as two? If somebody needs the gym and needs a big event in there, and let's say A-Trap needs to use one of the classrooms, why would we make them, their travel into the vestibule of the gym to use a bathroom, or vice versa?
If I may, I've analyzed that quite a bit. It actually works in the reverse, because it would be the rarest situation where the gym is being used by a lot of people and the lobby is not used. That would just never happen. If you had more than 50 people using the gym, the lobby's going to be open. It's just an operational thing. You're going to have the lobby. So why not have the restrooms focused more centrally in the situation where you have something big going on in the classrooms and the gym is being used by somebody else? It's more than likely a sports event where you have fewer people using the gym. So you don't need as much bathroom in the gym. You need more bathroom centrally. The other third elephant in the room is the courtyard. You also need, the courtyard is going to have the potential to have a larger event than the gym is. So you're going to have an outdoor event, and where's the bathroom? It's in the gym. So there you've got a whole nother issue of how do you get people through from outside in an outdoor event like farmers market or something like that. So I think the bulk of the restrooms need to be in that central area. A little bit of the restrooms could be in the gym. Any event where you have a larger number of folks, you're going to open up the lobby, and walking the extra 40 feet to get to the more substantial restroom is not going to disturb anybody. Especially since the lobby would be being used as a lobby. Again, it's really hard to design spaces without having the management and the use of the spaces clarified a little better. But I went through and I loved your way of doing the pink building separations. And I went through it and I tried every iteration I could come up with, and I came up with about 28.
Yeah.
And which is really cool. I didn't dare try and colorize them. But it did come up with the fact that you could be using one classroom or two classrooms or all three classrooms or classrooms and lobbies. And it got really fascinating to figure out. And it also helped me visualize more of the events that could happen and how would they happen. And the fact that if you had somebody just wanted one of the classrooms and you're using the westernmost classroom, they got to hike it to the bathroom somewhere. And vice versa, if you wanted them to have coffee and dip pastries, somehow the kitchen's got to get to them. So you got, and it's not that far. It's not like it's a big deal, but it could be when you start piling on other uses happening at the same time. So my gut reaction is, just because of the layout we're stuck with, centralize the two key factors, the kitchen and the restrooms.
Where would you put the restrooms? Can you put that diagram back up? I'm just curious where you put them, like on that, right, looking at that.
Yeah, in the case of the ones closest to the classrooms, I would increase those to be more total site use, so that everybody has equal distance to get to them, kind of thing. And then I would put something in the gymnasium that would suffice for more than likely the basketball players.
So what would you take out to put a much bigger restroom in the central area? What would you get rid of or move?
If you shuffle it around, there's a ton of space there, and the lobby is a nice big space, the way it's laid out in this image. I think you can really harness that same feel and edit that a little bit, but also gain that gymnasium vestibule and turn that into something special, a gallery, so that it acts as a proper entry space to an event.
In the gym.
Yeah. And turn that whole southern section into a grand entrance. Bruce?
Going back to the point I was making before, which is not an unusual event. But with Robin's comment, about it being management, I agree that is, when you're in it. But I think that the idea, even now, to think about, okay, it's a policy issue. I mean, absolutely. If we're trying to avoid crowds drinking, that kind of thing, and not have, events going kind of in and out of the buildings or whatever. I think it's appropriate for the council to make a decision and say, weddings, yes, weddings, no. If it's going to be weddings, how many, how often or whatever. But now's the time to make kind of envision in your mind, what is this going to feel like when you're there? And if you go, and I think that, again, maybe I just missed it, but I thought of this, and I thought that I heard from Roberta and others that they wanted this to be a place of tranquility in that, because in respect for what was the land was used for before. And I don't know if we have that many people that are of the age to get married, and living in Cannon Beach. So it seems like it would be a convenience for outsiders, to come in here. But so I do think it's appropriate. It's a management problem once the decision is made, because I don't think we should have 2 or 3 events. It's just not big enough. It should have stretched them out or something. But it should be a policy decision of the council as to what kind of events would go on. And then it's up to management to manage that.
There seems like the idea is using tourism dollars that we want to attract people who want to have a banquet. It's our own festivals, it's conferences, it's corporate retreats, whether you include weddings in that, it may be another case. But it seems like, aren't those the kinds of things that we see happening there?
Yeah, I wasn't picturing anyway.
Any what?
Any weddings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless they were really small.
Now, Sam was talking about service to the classrooms from the kitchen, and this has the service windows going both directions.
It has the service windows, but to your point, there's no door,
Yeah.
so you couldn't physically walk out.
you'd have-
That's, I think, something that
You
makes
have to pass
try to
the
incorporate.
service window onto a catering curtain,
Sure.
then take it down the hallway. It would be nice, given Sam's point.
Mhm.
I don't see the bathrooms being combined somehow, but it is a good point that it might be nice if it's possible to be able to pass through the lobby to the other restrooms. So I don't know if there's some compromise in the kitchen, whether you can still have a pass through there on the south side. That's kind of weird with the way that it sits, but
You're saying it would be nice to have a connection from the lobby to the gym bathrooms?
yeah, that's what you've got there, I guess, but.
Well, that was,
I just don't see the need for 2 lobbies. I think that one lobby is gonna be the one that gets used. But you still want to have access if one space is being used and still be able to use the other space.
I have a question. It kind of bounces off the 2 other questions regarding the lobby. When you say what is it? You use the word
function.
pre-function. And the first alternative allows a pre-function. What the heck is a pre-function? And how does it relate?
It's a cocktail party before an event.
I know, but why do you need to have a lobby in front of the gym in order to have the cocktail party? It looks like to me, the lobby is large enough as it is to have that pre-function event without kind of wandering over to the gym vestibule. I guess that kind of, I just don't see what it is you're talking about. So to me, the lobby is, I can see having a function in the lobby before you go into the gym or before you go into the classrooms, but then to bring it in front of the gym, that just doesn't.
It's like
Makes
the
sense
area
to
of
me.
the theater off to the side. It's the area where you enter, mill around a little bit before you go sit.
Well, I understand that,
Okay.
but I don't understand why you have to have 2 of them.
Yes.
I don't understand why they have to be connected.
Yeah.
Right. I agree with you.
I don't quite see that. But I do understand Gary's idea about being able to pass through to get to the restroom. If this one is filled, or if you don't, for some reason, can't use that to get to the restroom. Otherwise, you'd have to go out here, then outside, and then back in, and then to the bathrooms. So. Oh,
Well, those restrooms on the west side, the ones that enter with the beach access, you're not just talking about one stall in each one, are you?
No, there's 2 from the lobby, 2 stalls in each of those. And then like I said, the beach access ones are directly from the exterior. So there's 3 and 3 basically there.
Jan, go ahead.
I just wanted to get back to what Bruce was trying to say about talking with Roberta about the tranquility aspect of this. I don't think we want to turn this into a regular event center. I think we want to remember where this is. This is a very unusual place in the history of our whole country, basically. And so we don't want to forget where we are. We are in the space where the village was of the tribe for thousands and thousands of years. So I'm just wanting to hear more from Bruce about the tranquility that Roberta was trying to bring to the whole facility, I think. Not to forget that when we're planning.
Well, and that's why I don't envision weddings there. I mean, nice events, banquets, you know, with speakers and that kind of thing, but I don't want a crazy party.
Yeah.
Unless it's us.
Right.
I got the impression the tribe liked the idea of those kinds of social events, a conference.
What kind of conference do you mean? Are you talking about where people come in from all over to have like a convention center?
It could be, corporate retreats. I could see it being a perfect place for a corporate retreat where they've got a big main hall and you've got breakout rooms. And you'd need all of that space. You'd need the kitchen, you need the breakout rooms.
Yeah, I'm thinking more in terms of community based.
One of the things we have to always remember when we're talking about this is the fact that we are using TRT dollars for this.
Yeah.
This is part of our foundation in order to create this project, is that at least 51% of the events or facility usage has to prove that we've drawn people from out of town. So yes, half of it is convention space and half of it, the idea of it is community space. I'm not saying that declines the idea of it being a sacred space. I think it is, but I also think, you know, tribal league, when you think of, they had weddings, they had parties. I don't think just saying, oh, that's bad because it's going to make too much noise and it's not going to be sacred, that disturbs me. The idea of it being a facility that we have for whatever comes our way, we have to be very careful and manage it properly. And say, okay, I don't have problems with weddings. I think weddings are very nice events. Yes, they can get out of hand. That's where management comes in. That's where we have to say, okay, control it. But it's also a great space for a Halloween party. We've always used to have Halloween parties or the festivals there. Christmas parties.
What was the conference you just went to?
And League of Oregon Cities is
So
going
League of
to
Oregon
have-
Cities, and they wanted a
they want a
space.
breakout space.
Yeah, so they wanted a space that could fit 150 people and have breakout space.
Yeah, and so where we need to be able to say, oh, there's another opportunity coming this way. We also need to be able to say, no, that one's not for us. I agree with that. But that's going to be a little bit of an experience to figure out what is and what isn't.
And they'll decide they don't want to have it there
Yeah.
if we
you know,
have rules.
if we have rules, and we can price some of the stuff out if we want to. We haven't set any of those kinds of guidelines yet. The other one that came up was, I can never pronounce it, the Latin festival for when the young ladies come out. Quinceañera, thank you. Somebody asked about that because right now our locals are going to the fairgrounds to do that. That's a party, interesting party. So what we use this for is very inherent in the fact that we're trying to make a space that is as flexible as possible, so that when we have these discussions of what we want to use it for, we got space.
At the candidates forum, we had the question of the Hispanic population. I think we all kind of, none of us had really wrapped our heads around that, but I mean, for me, it was kind of eye-opening. And then I look at that space, that's a perfect space to do a Hispanic Heritage Festival.
Well, and quinceañeras are mostly local. There are people down here using the space for a local festival, which is a lot different than bringing in people from all over Oregon and Washington for weddings. I don't see them as being the same size, you know, they're two very different things. One is encouraging our local Hispanic community up and down in this area, North Coast, to use this space for their celebration of turning 15. But the other is commercial wedding venue, and that's a whole different ball.
But one fits in one half of our mandate, literally, and one fits in the other half. So we have to be cognizant of the fact that we kind of need to make this available to visitors for events. I don't say weddings specifically. If it comes down that we want to cancel all weddings, that's fine. But we're going to have events where we invite people from more than 50 miles away.
Sure. When you have any music event at all is open to people from all over the place. People would come in from Portland to go to a music event. That's still a different thing than a wedding venue is a whole. I think don't think that's a good idea.
I don't know that anybody's.
You can't just say, we want you to have a wedding here, but we don't want you. You've got to be very careful. You can't, pick and choose by weddings. If it's a wedding event, a wedding place, it's a wedding place.
I haven't heard anybody speaking up. We have to have weddings. I
think it
sounds like we pretty much agree that maybe that's not the direction we want to go.
Yeah.
Well, to me, I'll get to you in just a second, Bruce. You're saying it wrong to me. Saying a wedding venue is a designed wedding venue. A venue that can have weddings is something different. My cousin got married in a state park in one of their little shelters. When they rented it, it was called a wedding venue, but it's not. It's a picnic venue. So, that's one of those things. I'm sorry, Bruce, go ahead.
Thank you, Sam. Going back to Gary's point about a business or corporation or something like that having a retreat. That's exactly what we're trying to get. And then those are exactly the people that we would go after. One of the groups that Jim across the way here that does the blue and glass, when he was the chair of TAC, he went crazy when we started talking about having burgers come here. Because those are like ideal people. They spend more than anybody else, and it's and it's a quiet sort of an event. But that's the kind of thing that we would look for. But we're also limited when we're talking breakout spaces. Now we're down to 3 classrooms, and so I don't know if the idea of 120 is going to equate out to what we can get into the classrooms. But so I would just think discussions have been things like doctors' practices. And, you have those kind of events here. And as a selling point, there's not a lot of parking right close, but it's probably the only wedding stoppers. Probably the only kind of conference event where you can walk on the beach from your hotel to the meeting.
Yeah.
So that is, and we will be doing those kind of things to bring people from outside. Having the space that we're creating outside and re-energizing, I guess, that's going to bring people that are going to be it's a very passive experience. They'll kind of walk through or whatever. So it still is very much tourism, and that will fit very well, especially from the education of tourists. But I am concerned with, I mean, again, with weddings, how do you control this? Usually you have wine, drinks, something like that. Are we gonna allow people to walk around with alcohol out in the park? Because they, all they gotta do is go through a door, so.
There's no law against it.
Okay.
I'm not saying I want it, but
Yeah.
if this town wants to revisit that open container law, it's never, ever been talked about. I don't know the history about why this town allows it, but it's not illegal.
But we could control it as a venue
I would
regulation.
certainly hope so, but I mean, it's always been something that's been kind of odd to me.
Yeah.
That this town. It's sort of an unspoken thing.
Oh.
And it seems to somehow self-regulate. But I very much want to have a discussion also about how we envision the hours. Is this something that we want somewhat late events to go on or not at all? Or
I agree. We haven't talked about it. I'm hoping we do start talking about it because I've tried. Because I think it's very important for these folks so that they can help us get a better venue for the stuff that we want to do there. So the management aspect is critical.
But don't we have noise ordinances already? I mean, noise.
Yeah.
The mute, I mean, doesn't have to stop at 10.
I believe that's correct.
Yeah,
And then there's a lighting issue.
right.
That will have a huge play in this. If you have nighttime events, what the outdoor lighting would look like. It has to be safe, but by the same token, you don't want to have big glare
Right.
by the river.
Well, it has to follow the dark sky ordinance.
Right. Yeah.
Again, those are management problems and we're trying to help these
I was
folks.
gonna say, I think we're getting a little deep.
They're-
Some of that was helpful, right?
It can't all be gold, right? Say that to you.
I think the conversation that we had is going in the right direction for the kind of policy we would be looking for from the council. So if we're going to try to bring in groups or something that would have breakout session and things, that's one thing. If we want to make sure that we want to have people coming for the historical and all that, we can cover that. But as far as having something that is big enough in the gym, it could potentially, take over or change the character of the place. You need to say that's okay or not. And then that would drive the management decisions. I appreciate your letting me talk.
Can you zoom in on the gym vestibule option? With the connection. I started kind of spinning wheels as you guys were chatting. So I feel like given this flexibility and trying to understand how you might need to use this toilet room versus that toilet room, but still being able to lock down, say, the gym and still make maybe both toilet rooms accessible to the classroom space. I'm thinking what makes sense is to look at this scheme and the gym toilet rooms might swap places with the kitchen. And that might also lend us to have more of an opportunity for that door directly into the kitchen from the outside. But I feel like if we do that, then we can still maintain, like I said, locking down the gym. People could get all the way from the classrooms over to these additional toilet rooms. They would become a little bit more centrally located, like you were talking about, Mayor Sam. I feel like that's kind of our next version of maybe exploring this option and maintaining this versatility, but incorporating all of this feedback.
And then we give up the immediate kitchen access to the classroom wing.
Well, it wouldn't necessarily be a direct like serve counter, but I still think because you would be coming in from the lobby into the gym vestibule to access the toilet rooms, that then yes, you would still have that connection over to the kitchen. And maybe there's a service counter there, or maybe it's just the door where the service staff could come and go out of there. But I feel like that might be.
Why, my question is, why are we so locked into having the kitchen in the gym?
That was our last meeting, I think it turned into, why are we not putting more functions in the gym? Because we did have everything over in the classroom building and it was just becoming tight and tight and tight. I think especially going back to the conversations with the tribe and part of that connection from the street to the courtyard and seeing all the way out to the estuary and actually being drawn in. And that's really what led us to this point of having this lobby space, which we haven't really talked a whole lot about as far as what our expectation is of that those are all really, glass storefront doors. We're showing some roll-up doors. So in the nice times of the year, they could just be open. So it could really actually act as an indoor-outdoor space. So really draws people in all the way through into the courtyard and see the activity going on. So that lobby is really now becoming kind of that heartbeat of this site and the hub of the activity and really engaging people and making them perk up and like, well, what's going on over there? Let's go check it out.
Yeah, I guess I'm missing some variety and things still. I get to me, and I'll try and describe it, but if you took the kitchen, put it in the lobby up in that northeast corner, took the office and IT and stuffed that down where storage is, you would open a ton of space in the gym and you would not lose hardly any space in the lobby. So I'm just saying there's a lot of maneuvering we could still do with just what I'm seeing there, that whole central area and south end of the gym, with all of those various boxes to sort out just some different options. I feel like we're too locked in still, or as yet. At this point, I was hoping, but I guess it's not working for me.
I love that big open lobby, and I think it does provide
Yeah, but
additional event space.
you could do it without losing the lobby. You're just moving it to the west a little bit. And the other thing is that the opening to the kitchen is much more versatile to what you can do in the lobby. Because that actually makes the lobby more of a venue space of its own. And you still have access to the gym and closer access to the classrooms.
So you would lose a couple of doors then, right? If you moved it to the west?
There's all kinds of little details you could sort out.
So now we're separating the kitchen from the main event space where you'd have your biggest banquets and
It's still connected right to it.
there.
It's just on the outside of the gym, but it's connected to it. You have direct access.
To me, that really kind of ruins that grand lobby, which I think has so many possibilities.
And if I can just,
So see-through, that's just
And the
feels like a
roll-
very
roll-
good design.
there's one thing that we're missing when we present to you all, and that's that we've had tens of hours of coordination with the tribe, and the last sticking point, the hardest hurdle to get over, to get everyone on the same page, was the existing breezeway.
Mhm.
And what we come to, could we all sort of agree upon? We were kind of split down the middle. Do we need to maintain that breezeway and leave it open? Or, I was a big proponent of no, to get this place to function potentially as one building, and you want the ability to be able to do that, it needs to be enclosed. So one of the negotiations there to get buy-off from, and not just the tribal stakeholder, but from some of city staff as well, and some of CETA staff actually. And I'm not necessarily saying Maya, but I'm telling you, we were all over the board on this.
Mhm.
Is that, okay, well, then this needs to be a transparent space. And you'll see that we're carrying the outside materials from the Southeast Plaza all the way through the space for that reason. Roll-up doors, to Maya's point, to be able to open the space completely. To be able to tie these two buildings together and have them function as one, the concept of the breezeway was important enough conceptually, idealistically, that it needed to be maintained just to be able to reach that consensus point. So when we start taking the program out from the gym, and putting it in this space, that becomes a problem.
But you saw the graphic I sent you. I didn't lose any dramatic space from the lobby, the breezeway lobby concept. I just moved it. So I haven't lost that.
So the other thing I think that's, you know, there's a lot of things that are being asked to be done in the same spaces, right? So like, for instance, the office, it wants to have a view to the north courtyard, but it wants to have a view to the entry. So if we move it, right, that's great. There's all kinds of options you can do, but is that worth this trade-off? Because you lose that connection. Okay, so then if you move this, so this is, I think, what we've been doing on all of these conversations is to understand, you know, where do those connections really need to be? You know, does that office need to be part of that oversight of who's coming and going, you know, what's happening out in the field or not? And we've moved that office around a few times, and this answered most of the requests for that, which is why it's where it's currently at. Again, not to say this is where it has to stay, but these are the reasons that we've gotten to this point. And again, to the lobby, just making sure that it's number one, open and has that connection. But because we have sacrificed one of those classrooms in order to do this, making sure that it is flexible and big enough to be another classroom or event space in and of itself if needs be. So I'd have a little bit of anxiety about thinking of that encroaching at all, because this, quite honestly, to me just feels right. It just feels inviting and engaged. And I can totally see people walking in with the doors open and it's just like, oh my gosh, this space is so amazing. Now I can't believe we have this here.
I agree with what you're saying as a concept. I think what's happening here is, yes, you're making a really nice lobby space, but the sacrifice is the gym space. So that vestibule is a wasted transition. The bathrooms are cockeyed because they're not central, and the kitchen is. So how can you rearrange some of that to keep the lobby space and still make the other parts central? I think it can be done. I personally, I didn't have the discussion with the tribes about the office. I don't understand why that, to me, that's a very low priority.
They weren't involved. So
Okay,
well,
well-
particular discussion. That was more of a.
Okay, and I think that actually would be better on the south side. That's just me. I'm trying to help the design process, even though I know I'm throwing monkey wrenches and stuff, but I'm afraid that's.
So I think one thing to keep in mind on the gym is really the current gym and the usable space that's there is basically the same size we're showing here. Because you have to the north, all of that storage area, that mezzanine, all of that's not really used for the gym space. So we've just swapped it. So I have a hard time wrapping my brain around how we're sacrificing the gym, because it's basically.
Not sacrificing square footage. I'm sacrificing the quality of what is the space being used. That the vestibule as it sits right now with the door in the center really harms the use of the big room. I think the door in the center is a really ill-placed aspect. And that's just me, because I would want to be able to have a centrally focused south wall so that we can use the south wall for movies or speakers or something. Yes, you might be able to use the north wall, but I think that has turned into a more of a viewing aspect, because that was what everyone was really commenting on. If it's not, if we're going to keep that south wall solid so that we can have, other uses, why are we doing all this swapping ends stuff? And the fact that the vestibule, it's one of those spaces that becomes just a place to walk through. It's not quite big enough for a whole lot of milling around and entertaining. Especially if you put a couple stand-up tables, that's it. It doesn't have any intrigue towards the kitchen. The kitchen's just a wall. Then you got bathrooms right there. The area in front of bathrooms is always just transition. It's not a milling around and talk to friends about space. So again, I'm saying the quality of the space is lacking. And I feel like it can be improved.
I think you make some good points about the north end, south end orientation. I would not want to give up the opening it up to the north. But it seems like we would need some kind of flexibility of backdrops so that you could orient an event
And then where are you
either
going to store
direction.
those?
What's that?
Then where are you going to store those?
Yeah.
Can you do a folding wall of some kind? I don't know how much expensive that could be.
I would expect that we would have roller shades that would be dropped down that could be blackout.
Yeah,
But, and I don't know, I might be the odd person out, but if I'm in an event and I know that there's this view right there, like I'm listening, but I'm staring out the window, looking at the scenery. So I would prefer that personally, but
You'd prefer to be looking out?
looking out, yeah, like I want to be able to see, even if it's just the treetops, because so the other thing is you're thinking that whole area, right, is this big vertical space. So you'd still have, we're proposing windows, high above, so you could still, see the sky and the clouds and whatever. And then maybe the lower portion is where you've got more of those roller shades that maybe they're blackout, maybe they're just obscuring. But there are ways to handle that, with finishes and fixtures and such. So that doesn't scare me away from still having the stage there, but I do think having the versatility of, let's talk about moving that door and you could move the stage too. I think that's perfect comment, because again, versatility, flexibility, what are the options?
I'm going to throw another one out. The access point at the southeast corner of the gym becomes a service entrance. The way it's set up there, because you've got storage and access up above in that door. I don't know if you've kept that as a door there or not. I couldn't.
No, we're showing that being infilled.
Okay. So then that just flips around as the service entrance then becomes the north wall. Because if you've got somebody with a vehicle that wants to deliver event stuff, how are they going to get it in there? Especially larger stuff that then what can go through the bottom double doors. I don't know. I think that's a detriment to the fact that the whole key of that southwest corner of the site is really cool. I need some sort of association with that to the gym all the way through to the lobby. So that's what I presented as an idea.
And this is another, I don't know how many design options we've tossed out there but we talk about a lot of the different options actually, and how it would be ideal to have those options all wrapped in one. But the reality is that we can't have all those options all rolled into one. The southeast entry plaza, it became a crux in design when we started looking at the amount of space we had on site to the south side of the gym to be able to say, well, how can we possibly have a meaningful main entrance to this facility be all the way over where we're showing it now, over here. When there's all that, your only connection between this grand southeast entry plaza that's designed to activate this space and the main entrance to the facility is a little 5-foot sidewalk, and it looks inconsequential. So now, and we had options where we had, and this was my favorite option at one point, was to rebuild this lean-to over here and have that be, at the time, we were calling it a welcome center, but that would be the lobby space to the gym. And it, that's much more of a natural entrance off the Southeast Plaza. But where we've gone from there is to say, you know what? We might be able to get additional property beyond that 5 feet. And we're proposing, in the 15 to 18 foot range to then be able to make a very grand and natural association, pedestrian scale association between the Southeast Entry Plaza and this main entrance to the building. And to your point, Mayor Sam, I think there's still concepts. And again, we tried to drive the point across in that first COE. We were showing a lot of renderings of what this thing could be. We hadn't yet met with the tribe. But I think one thing that we did talk about with the tribe, there seemed to be a lot of support for the idea of that revolving mural wall at that southeast corner. For me, that's one of the big reasons to get rid of these doors, that little double door entry at the southeast, because I want that mural wall to wrap the corner. And the idea of this mural wall for me is that this is a incredibly artistic community. And what a cool way to have your work featured, right? Than to be the face of, or the backdrop of the Southeast Plaza in this community center, or however we want to turn that. And
What version is the larger kitchen?
we're calling that version 2B.
Or not.
Part of what I like about that, as far as an entrance, if you need a separate entrance to the gym. So someone's using the other half. I can just imagine walking through there. Maybe it's kind of a wide hallway, really. But then you step out and you see the view from inside the gymnasium to the north, with it being opened up, and that feels like kind of a nice feeling as you walk out there and then see that. So this feels to me like the closest thing that I've seen.
Yeah, and there, there's pros and cons to everything. And maybe to your point about this little gym vestibule, and it's there now. We struggled with this, and this was, I can't tell you how many times we've talked about this and how many venues, but do we need to have a separate entrance for the gym than we do for the main entrance for the site, that CBE lobby? Now we have two entrances. Well, what entry, how do people know which entry to go to? But if you take that gym entry away, you make people enter the gym through the main lobby. Now we've, in my mind, precluded the option of being able to have one party using the gym space and another party using the classroom building.
I don't think you have to. There's. Yeah, I don't. Without having drawings to show, I can't really describe what I'm talking about, so I'm trying to avoid it. I think it's pretty straightforward, actually, to make the gym independent while still being able to connect it to the lobby. I think it's an easy solution. So, sorry, I'm being so persnickety here, but
Your mind has navigated these things many times.
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'm just going, whoa, okay.
I did go back to look at my original white paper that I wrote a long time ago, 2014, about what we could do here and the 50 events that we could hold in a year kind of thing. and all of the ongoing kind of stuff that could happen. So I can reference quickly all the possible events. And I can see how having essentially 5 public spaces and all their iterations of how they could be used gives you almost 50 different iterations, including the exterior spaces. We've got a whole lot of potential here. How do we make it as efficient and as functional for as many of those events as possible? And I also have to put in my own flair of knowing how the old events used to work there. My biggest bugaboo is not knowing how big the bathrooms have to go. Kind of go, oh, shit. That's the one issue that's to me the crux of the whole problem. Is everything else we can manipulate. The size of how much bathroom space is mandated by building code, we're stuck with. That's a reality. I don't, like you say, it's less the 2 little ones, and that's how much we have. That's fine. But again, without dimensions and stuff like that, and there's a few things that I could work with and work without. I'm quite more concerned how the classrooms, the gym's easy, it's big. We're going to use it for essentially two things. Gymnasium, athletics, and, smaller facility type things, and large, big room events. The classrooms, especially if we have one that is flexible double space, have a whole lot of potential for all kinds of different functions. And they are the most likely to have the educational functions, which I think are really cool, and probably the late night functions for community stuff. I could see we've got that game called card game. Bridge. We got a bridge club in town. They actually right now go to Seaside and play at the library. They're looking forward to having one of the classrooms to use. Things like that. I didn't even have that on my list, other than I had a game night. And also the aesthetic of how the interior works. I think the exterior has all kinds of potential. I'm open to the exterior, and I like the idea of the mural. I always have. At less a door or plus a door, give or take that. That's okay. I also like the fact that we've actually added, with the storage units on the side, we've added that wall now to have as some sort of art form, or at least a backdrop for art form. That whole wall is unlikely. I mean, we could have windows in there for the storage, but why not have windows and put skylights in so you have natural light? Then you have that whole wall to work with.
Sam, I guess I'm not following you about the classroom. I mean, I think that's a great idea to have the bridge club in the classrooms and age wrap things in the classroom. And so what's the problem with it?
There's no problem. I'm just saying they, to me, have a potentially more community use.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
Than the gym is going to have. The gym's going to have community use, but less frequently, because it's a bigger event, other than the fact that you're going to have sports and pickleball players in there forever.
Right.
But that kind of thing.
I think I'm kind of with Lisa. So you're making that case about the classrooms being so important, but are you making a case for changing something? Because it seems.
No, I'm sorry. I'm just rattling on.
Okay.
I do have, again, that central area to me is can have some improvement.
Can I ask a question about the southeast corner? And the storage there. Fire riser and stairway. Is there actually mezzanine storage there that you're?
Not showing a mezzanine storage on the mezzanine here. We had done away with that concept from last COE. But what we are showing is an equipment platform. You can think of it as an equipment platform, so we don't have to find someplace outside to stick our HVAC units or put them on the classroom building. The fire riser, so we know we're going to sprinkle these buildings, so we need that fire riser can go virtually anywhere along that south wall. It could be incorporated in the electrical room. It doesn't have to be where we're showing it. We're just trying not to lose sight that we need it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, given Sam's thoughts and concerns, is that movable somewhere, that storage?
It is, yeah. And to be honest, for it to function as storage in that aspect ratio that we're showing it at, it's not a great use of that space. By the time it started out good, but by the time you put a stair in there to access your equipment on the second, then you're starting to run into issues. We knew that putting it forward, that this is not a very efficient storage space. That being said, I mean, we do need storage in a facility like this.
Yeah.
So I want to throw out an idea, and Sam, I'm listening, and what if we can do things from a code standpoint, like provide family toilet room that satisfies the requirements for both male and female. Okay, so kind of like a unisex toilet room, basically. What are your all's thoughts? We thought it was important to have storage accessible to this classroom that can be opened up as a double classroom. Maybe the priority should be that we put a couple of family toilet rooms where that storage is shown, and the storage for that double classroom is just a little further away, and you have to go through the gym to get to that. Then that starts to open up that what is currently shown as gym vestibule, but maybe that's more kitchen space. Maybe it's more storage space. Those are the kinds of things we can start to look at. And I don't even think that we have to solve that tonight. I think tonight is, are we close enough with one of these options that we can continue to pursue it moving forward?
And part of my thought on if that's something flexible, is that thought of kind of coming in through that south entrance of the gym and you being maybe a little more room, but a little more center too. So you come out and then you kind of opens up to the view of the inside of the building.
And for me, that space is 30 feet high, right, at its apex. I don't necessarily believe that having a door where it's shown there, to have that experience of walking through a vestibule and the door roughly centered in the wall, that door is only 7 feet high. Maybe you have an 8-foot door because of the grandeur of the space beyond, right? So 8 feet. You still have quite a bit of space above that to project onto. You could, if you wanted to have an event on that side of the gym, just hold the movable stage pieces far enough off that south wall that you're satisfying egress requirements, and you can still project above it. So I see that as being a solvable design problem.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that too.
There's also going to be some events where it makes sense to, we imagine that in portions of these spaces where the barrel vault starts to come down. So on the east and west side, that we would probably have projector screens, automatic projector screens that can drop down and give you that vertical surface. There's a benefit to doing that for some types of spaces where you have a wider area to seat people to get them around more people around a radius focused on one point than having an event at one end or the other of the gym. Yeah. To Myers' point, we're showing it already. These dashed lines here, these showing potential projection locations.
And I've seen that room used in every one of those
Exactly.
venues, it's even central.
Yeah.
So I agree. But to me, if you put a door on that south wall in the center, you're losing that one option. Yes, you could probably, but then you're losing the space in the room. So you're actually, and then you got people milling in and out because they got to go to the restroom or something like that, constantly going around behind your presentation. So I don't know, that it's workable, but it's not optimal.
I still think that presentation on the north, I mean, if you had a speaker, I agree with what someone said about, I certainly would not want to turn my back on the north end to watch a speaker. I would be having a hard time paying attention. Craning my neck around.
Would you want to be the speaker with everybody looking at the stuff going on behind you?
Yeah, be a beautiful backdrop for me. I'd be thrilled.
I see what Sam is saying, especially the part about if it's bright out and you're essentially looking at somebody's silhouette, but I think that's solvable by some kind of backdrop.
Yeah, but if you don't need that extra material of the backdrop, when you've got another wall to work with. Chris?
We were doing the sound testing with Thistle and Rose. We found that music from the north end or the south end, it didn't go very far before you were hearing it a second and third time coming behind you. But when we put it got over more towards the barrel side, it was relatively good all the way to the other barrel side. So if we're going to put a speaker in there, I'd probably put them in the middle of that wall, the east wall. And if there's amplification or something like that, you've got the greatest opportunity as is with the shape that it's in to have good acoustics, or at least being able to understand the speaker. From the ends, that's a good.
That's a whole nother issue when we get to a pet set and the acoustic guy comes in and says, this is going to work or not. Yeah.
So I think one decision that would really help us tonight, that would solve a lot of problems for us from a design standpoint, is is there a consensus one way or the other as to whether or not we need a separate gym vestibule? Or do we have one main entrance into this building and you access the gym space off the main lobby?
Bruce has an opinion.
Shocking. I would prefer that it's not possible to enter through the middle of the gym from outside. I prefer that, since we have the manager's office up there, that if somebody's going in, they can see anybody that's going into the gym, and they kind of walk through the lobby space.
As it's shown now, correct?
Yes, but I would
Getting rid of.
probably require, no, I don't know if I would necessarily close it off. I think you are going to need something down there for fire code and other things. But I would want the operation to be that anybody that's coming into the facility goes through the lobby so we know who's there. And then, it's easy to, I think that's the best way to do it.
I guess my point, Bruce, is as it's shown in the lobby now. Are you saying you don't like the idea of the doors going through the gym vestibule? You want it only going through the lobby?
I would prefer that from an operations standpoint, because you can have a lot of things going on in the gym and not even know anybody's in there.
Sure, I understand. I'm just trying to understand what you're saying.
Yeah. But you come in through the lobby and you go into that double door that's there.
Dustin, what do we need in terms of egress in and out of the gym?
You probably need two exits on one end and one exit on the other end.
Okay,
Yeah.
I could see that not being an entrance and pushing everything through the lobby, and that gives us more room to bathroom storage.
Yeah.
The issue has always been that we don't want, it would be better not to breach the wall because that's the roof structure. So
This, the south wall,
the west wall, the whole
Yeah,
wall of the
barrel.
dome, the barrel.
yeah.
We can do it if we have to. But my inclination was it'd be better not to.
Did I say something that made it sound like I wanted to do that?
Well, that's what that door does.
Yes, we are showing that with both the service entrance from the kitchen, so the service opening from the catering kitchen out to the lobby, as well as that door leading from the lobby into, those are new openings.
Those are structural.
So to accommodate that, we have to go in with glue lamp sections and basically build up a rib all the way up to the apex. So there are structural implications.
But then just the door. Yeah, I think personally, I think the service, we could probably be creative and work between. It would be weird, but we would have 24-inch things and still leave the truss. But that's just being creative. The door, that's a little hard.
It kind of makes the gym vestibule south entrance a little bit more of a service entrance. I mean, load in for the kitchen.
Yeah.
That's kind of a problem we have right now with that gym space. It's a grand space and look at the entrances we have to get in there, right? It's kind of not fitting for what's beyond that. So
Yeah,
that was part of the appeal of the south entrance and just part of again, there's pros and cons to everything. But we can open up that south wall and the north wall as much as we want and not face major structural concerns. So we can create.
But one thing that would kind of address Bruce's concern, why not take the lobby on out to the walkway and just use the door we got. So that's another idea. Create and that does compound the opening area of the lobby, but I think that could be solved.
if I'm hearing what Bruce is saying, I guess I'd have a couple of concerns. If that would be the only, if we closed off the south entrance to the gym and used the only one door to the gym from that's viewable by the office, then you have, I think, at least two problems. One is, how do you get equipment and catering and all that? I mean, where do you go? I guess you'd have to go right through the gym and then back down to the catering kitchen. And the other question is safety. If there's a fire or something, there's only one door for people to get out of pretty quickly.
we can't have one.
No, you have to.
Got the north wall, Nancy.
Is there a door at the north?
Is, so we need to maintain 3 exits like this one. And 2 of them could be on the north entrance, and then we would need another one on the opposite end of the building. In order
So
to,
that doorway could be a service entrance only, not an entrance to the facility, but a service entrance and a fire exit.
are we talking the door
The
in?
gym
South.
vestibule
Yeah.
Right
doors.
there?
That one,
That's correct.
Right. So my only clarification, Bruce, on your comment about having people coming to the gym, going through the lobby. I thought there were conversations at one point about, well, then that means we have to leave the lobby open at all these hours. And if we lock down the lobby and people still need to use the gym, that's why we have this gym entrance. So I have a recollection of that conversation, but I'm not sure. Okay.
And I understand that. And so if you're gonna shut down the lobby, then you would open that door on the south.
Okay, but that would be on specific occasions.
This is,
and just for a gym entrance, I mean, how
Right.
much of a grand entrance do you need?
Right, if they're gonna go play basketball,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
Until you need it for a grand entrance. So yeah, if we want to use that for a larger event, you kind of want a grand entrance, so. Sorry, guy, but see what I'm saying?
You don't think the lobby makes a nice grand entrance to the whole facility?
I think it could be better,
Bigger, you said, or better?
better.
What do you, by better, do you mean bigger?
No. I'm unable to describe it while people are looking at these drawings.
Okay.
Sorry.
Can you try?
Well, close our eye.
I'm kind of hanging things up here, Sam.
Really ambiguous, you're saying.
Well, this is a schematic process, so we're feeding them information, hopefully. And I'm not the only one talking here.
You are. Like me, very visual and kind of see the concept. And so I know, I understand where he's coming from on this. I am afraid of a monkey wrench and us. This seems so close that it makes me nervous when we start talking about restrooms on the other side of the building. And so.
Well, it's part of the design process and, when we first met, I had designs and they've totally gone out the door. Because I had ideas that I'm realizing, okay, there's some new stuff going on here and I keep learning about this new stuff. And the last time we did it, the lobby idea of passing through and having that open space, that's a winning idea. I wouldn't lose that.
But isn't it time to
I love
make a decision and move forward?
I love
I mean, you want some information so you can start moving forward.
I also agree with Bruce, what he said about the safety issue. I have to say, I would want to know, there was a lot of things happening in that building, that there was somebody in the office who knew who was going in and out, not other people coming in from the street, just from a pure safety issue. I mean, I hate to say it, but that's the reality.
I mean, are we not going to consider, things like security cameras or something like that?
And someone's monitoring them all the time.
Well, I mean, what's the point? I mean, is somebody that's sitting in an office just because they have the ability to see somebody go in and out of one door, doesn't mean they do it. Because of an extra door that's monitored by a camera, is that the same?
The only issue I see with Bruce's comment is it may make it more difficult to have lobby classrooms be one thing and then the gym still in operation. By making everybody pass through the lobby, which may be being utilized, but I don't know.
Yeah, and again, I think that falls back into more of a management problem. How do we want to manage this thing? I mean, one solution is everybody who goes anywhere has to check into the office. If you're going to use a space, go through a door, you have to check into the office. Yeah, sure, somebody could open it up to his friends and then they're playing basketball.
But you're making Bruce's case that the south entrance becomes service entrance and fire exit and
have to be. Where is the office? I guess to me, the office is a function of management. We need to solve that problem before we can really hammer out where the office should be. I did have a question. I'm going to skip to just a question for you guys. Would it be possible, since we're talking about that loft area earlier, to put a control booth up there for lighting and sound and heating and stuff like that?
Yep, something like that. We can make an argument easily. I think that is a workspace and not required to be ADA accessible. In the event that you were to have a disabled person who to run that function, that it becomes the employer's responsibility to provide, what's the verbiage in the code?
The accommodation.
Reasonable accommodations. Yeah.
Okay.
And those are somewhat subjective.
Yeah. Okay. So there, I was just thinking, where is all of that stuff? And that could be very important to the space.
If you're running audio visual in a highly controllable way, you need a back of house. Yeah, absolutely. And that back of house could be up on this equipment as needed.
Perfect spot for it.
Okay.
Dustin, how far apart are we? And we haven't, come up with real solutions. And I'd like to hear from you as the architects, what you're hearing
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
where you see the roads to progress.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff I want to say.
Clear privately.
With or without beer? No, just kidding.
Right, right. Who brought the wine, right? So one thing that we have to take very seriously is the integrity of the process, right? And that's part of why you all hired us. There's a reason why I'm not taking Sam's plans, which I have readily available on my computer, and splashing them up here. I can't do that and protect the integrity of the process. So what CETA's not. Sam made the comment that a lot of his ideas have gone out the door. All of my favorite ideas, they have also gone out the door. So what you're seeing here, this is not Dustin's design. This is not Maya's design. This is the design that the process has led us to. And this satisfies the most amount of stakeholder goals. And what's unfortunate is that there are so many meetings behind the scenes. There's just no way to download you guys in the time that we have on everything from why it's important for the lobby to be the size that it is, and for it to be the shape that it is, and the office to be where it is. And I mean, there's rhyme and reason and stakeholder buy-off on just about everything. So I felt like we were coming into this meeting based off of the COE number 5 with, okay, we're talking about now, basically, are we prioritizing the connection between a gym vestibule and the lobby and having that function as one space, or are we prioritizing a bigger kitchen? In this discussion, we're really stepping back. And I kind of go back to what we said originally, which is even though you're seeking approval tonight for one of these schemes to move forward with, that does not mean things cannot still move around. So from that standpoint, I think that we could really choose one option or the other. We might end up back at the option we didn't choose in very little effort, right? They're really not that different. But what are your thoughts, Maya? How far?
I'm almost afraid to say. I almost feel like I want to be like, okay, like, let's do a quick vote just to get an idea, like who's liking B, who's liking C. Would you be comfortable with either of them? Or is it a like, yeah, like it's a flat, no, we're not headed down the right path here.
Can I ask one more question?
Please.
If we decided the gym entrance, gym vestibule as shown, becomes fire exit and service entrance, how might that change what you've got there in the entire south portion of the gym? Smaller and
That's what I see.
And
I see it.
more restrooms. I
Right.
think we probably have a big enough kitchen now in this one.
But do we also want to have that entrance for only when the gym is being used? Have that be the entrance if only the gym is.
Well, if you use the
That's true.
kitchen though for classroom, if the kitchen's being used for something in the classrooms, like a gathering in the classrooms, you're gonna have to have the kitchen open. So you'd have to have
Gym.
a service, you'd have to have that service entrance open to serve the kitchen for them to get into the.
I think either way, I think I have in my notes that the kitchen needs to have probably a door
Right.
to the lobby as well
Yeah.
as
To the gym.
either the gym or the gym vestibule. So I think it needs to have both of those options. This discussion.
You have a picture of both again.
Oh,
I don't want to see that anymore. Kitchen's just too small for ultimate use.
I guess one of the issues that I had was I don't see a whole lot of difference from the previous set here. So I guess I was hoping for a little more variety in what we had from last time. And I didn't see that. So if we are going to a poll on how we're doing this for Maya's sake, I'm a hard no. So I know it can fit Cannon Beach better.
A hard no on what?
On
These.
either of these.
Either of these.
Either of these.
I think 2B. With some potential smaller modifications, like you're saying, as we move along, is where we should be.
Could you put the other one back again?
This is the 2B option.
You can do them side by side.
That's,
It's
but let's go. Split. Hey, everybody vote.
Yeah, but how do
then just on whichever one, then just go back to your, change page or whatever. There we go.
I get it. Maya, this is gonna mess me up.
I'm sorry.
There you go.
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like 2C doesn't solve Bruce's issue of one office seeing everything that's going on. And it kind of gives us two lobbies where I don't think we necessarily need it.
Gary, that's not a deal breaker for me. I'm just trying to think, how do we make it? And trying to keep, you don't have to have 4 people there every day for, just for operations.
Yeah, no,
I'm more partial to the one with the larger kitchen, actually.
Yeah, too bad.
That option.
Mhm.
Lisa,
Larger
could you-
kitchen,
The larger,
Hmm?
the larger 2B.
The one on the left.
Yeah.
everybody say what they think. Of course, they're gonna get it.
The one on the left.
Is that A or B?
That's option 2B.
C is on the right.
Okay, C is on the right and B is on the left.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm B.
Okay.
Okay.
You like him, the optometrist.
Right, yeah. 1 or 2?
Could we try another?
Yeah,
Yeah, I tend to favor 2B with maybe some minor tweaks, but
B.
B.
Myself as well.
Okay.
That's everyone here.
Meeting's adjourned.
B and 1 either.
And one, let's redesign the whole thing.
And I think just to answer a little bit of what Mayor Sam had said, I think the reason that you're not seeing a bunch of modifications is we did not want to backtrack. We took what we heard and, okay, we need a bigger kitchen. Do we need the vestibule? So we really only made those modifications, and we very specifically brought just those tonight. Because these are how these meetings go, right? There's so many ways to skin the cat. There's so many right answers. There's others that aren't right answers. So it's a really mixed bag. So I have to say, I really appreciate everybody's effort and input. And to Dustin's point, we've all had suggestions that didn't make the cut that, I still to maybe this day, I'm like, man, I wish we had that, but no, we're trying to find the most right answers.
That's what happens, and that's the whole schematic idea. We used to call them bubble drawings. Draw them, throw them away and all that kind of stuff. It is a situation where you can very easily find something that works. But the one you want is the one that's great. That just works. And it could have been one of the back ones. It could be one in the trash bin. But you have to go through all the other iterations to realize it. So going back is not a design negative. Sometimes it's a positive. So just remember that. I'm not saying it is, because I think what we're doing is solving little problems at a time and not really encompassing yet a totality of the project. So. And in my experience, I probably do just the opposite of what you guys do. I throw out 24 options and start narrowing them down rather than taking a couple and tweaking and then taking a couple more and tweaking. That's just my work process. But
how many possible scenarios have you guys
I
created?
was gonna say, I don't know that that's not the way we did it.
Right.
And I think the other thing that it might feel like we're designing in a vacuum a little bit because you're not seeing and hearing the conversations that we're having internally. And again, Jennifer coming back in, because if you remember during our interviews, she was like, I'm the asking why question person. Like, that's great, but why? And is that going to work? Great, but why? So we have been doing a lot of that back and forth, and we have been going back to look at old things and, well, let's bring that back in here and see what that, it's all a moving puzzle, and it's fun, but it's.
But also as the 5 people up here are the client. And as one of the clients, I'm kind of trying to do the same thing. I'm trying to ask why and why not and stuff like that. So, but again, the 5 of us are the decider, the 5 that wind up here. Most of them are here. They're all here. Great. This is going to be hard for me to be in the back row after this, but just understand that, yes, listening to everybody else is very important to the community. But it's important to us also as the deciders that we have the best option, not just the one that works. That's where we're going to.
But
We'll get there.
Those are one and the same, right? That's what we're trying to get to. Those should be one and the same.
Well, and just there was a event that happened while you went to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Before we get there, Sam, if we wanted to give CETA the direction to move forward with option 2B, the larger kitchen, is there anything you see there that could be adjusted without kind of going back to the drawing board and moving restrooms and offices and?
No, I'm afraid I couldn't.
Okay,
I would be a big kibitzer in the back.
all right.
the other thing, though, I want to point out is we haven't been in the tribes session. And so we're relying on you guys to communicate how they feel about everything in the project. And that to me is a huge priority, that we honor what they want.
We have to have a certain amount of trust in these folks because we hired them and trust that they have done that work. And I believe they have.
Right, yeah. No, I think that's great, the amount of meetings that they've had, but we haven't been involved in those. And so. Right.
So, I mean, to that point, not to beat a dead horse, but the lobby ended up the way it was because of that close collaboration with the tribe. And again, it wasn't just the tribe that was saying, no, we need that breezeway connection. It's important, the transparency from the street side to what a lot of us view as the heart of the project, which is that north courtyard. To then start thinking about modifying that space from all the process that went into it and all the hours of negotiating. For me, I don't see a lot of gain in for what it's taking away from that space to start adding program into it and making it a different shape and maybe closing off some of that transparency. I feel like at that point we're definitely backpedaling. And so what I hear from my seat, okay, and I have to look at this, and again, this is the integrity of the process, and I really, you all are, this is the power of Cannon Beach right here, right? But I'm just an architect, and I look at each of you, you have wonderful ideas, but I still count each of you as one voice. And what I've heard tonight, and again, we're here with these two options based on a process and so much information gathered. For those of you who are new to city council, I think the surveys that we had gathered and all the community outreach events, all that stuff, you can see the labor and the data crunching and organizing and prioritizing that went behind that. And this is a result of that process. What you're seeing right now is an unadulterated product of that process. Okay. So I felt coming into this meeting that we were so close, and I hear from all of you except for one that we are so close with minor tweaks. So Mayor Sam, for me, you are the one holdout. And I'm just being honest, as the person who's trying to get everyone to rally, and believe me, this is not the first conversation we've had like this with the tribe, within CETA. It's like, you're my one holdout. There's a 1 point, Bruce, you're my holdout. I mean, but and to Sam's point, be terrible of me to use a political example in a venue like this, but I'm going to do it, right? Is Obamacare. Let's look at that for a second. And what ended up with that is everyone got their piece in there and ended up being something that nobody wanted. And that's what we're trying to not do here. To Sam's point is to try to solve all these little issues, and we're getting a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And we don't want to put together this jumbled mess of everyone's concepts and present it as this is what everybody wants, because that's what we heard. I don't think that we are doing that. I think we have listened to all the major stakeholders, and we've come to you with a space plan that meets the needs very, very well and is extremely versatile and allows room for time for this facility to be used to influence the next iteration. So we're not proposing something that's going to preclude a lot of options moving forward. And I feel like that's what we were tasked with. That's me. That's my soapbox.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. I would love to see this move forward today with an approval, but you know, to move forward knowing that there's going to be further options. Again, this is just schematic design. So what you're seeing tonight is not final. And what we're hoping is going to be one option to then continue to move forward with. There's going to be more pushing and pulling. But certainly what I've heard from the vast majority of stakeholders is that we're within spitting distance with either of these options, that we should be able to move forward with one of these and continue to modify it to get it to be that perfect scenario. So can we have that approval? The other thing too, and I don't, we are passionate about this project and we'd work on this project all the time if we could. We do need to be thinking too about design budget. And you know, it takes a lot of time to be coming back and forth and presenting options, and that's eventually money that's coming out of construction budget. So to get the most bang for your buck, a meaningful but efficient design process, which is bad for me because we don't get paid as much, right? But good in that we get to see more of the collaborative concept being realized physically. It's being built because it's not being spent and seeking perfection. And we've all heard that, you know, perfection is the enemy of progress. And I certainly am a proponent of that concept. I don't think there's going to be that perfect scenario out there that's perfect for everybody. I think there's going to be a really good option out there for most.
Do you have any idea when we will get some cost estimates?
Yeah, we're working on that now. So Bremick is now on board as the CMGC. We met with them on Monday. They're going to start working on preliminary cost estimates based on the information that you've seen to date, including these options up here. And we should have high level order magnitude cost estimates beginning of February. And then when we come back, we have another community outreach event in city council milestone approval process, just like this one, for the next stage of schematic design. And then they would be updating that preliminary cost estimate with more detail reflecting that sort of finalized version after the 3 phases, considering all 3 phases of schematic design. And that would be in the first part of March.
So we have another meeting on February 8th. Do you think we'll have something along cost estimates on February 8th, or it'll be later in February?
No, I think that aligns with our initial cost estimate.
Okay.
And the idea is, so far we're asking you all to make decisions outside of the reality of what it's actually going to cost. And so we know that barely a project comes along where we get the cost estimate back and it's like, oh, we have extra money to spend. It just doesn't.
But this time.
At this time, maybe. So then there's going to be pushing and pulling to address that as well.
Personally, I'm expecting that. And so based on your experience, where does that budget money usually get scaled back from?
It depends on the project. A lot of this project, a lot of the costs are going into making it meet current energy code, making it meet current seismic code, making it meet current egress code. And then just changing the materials that are on the building. The classroom building just got re-roofed. Aside from that, the materials on the rest of the building need to be replaced. The wood on the gym, the roof on the gym. Not so much the brick on the classroom, but to accommodate a design like this, you're looking at losing about 2/5 of that classroom building and rebuilding it back. So something like that, I could see being value engineered so that we're not removing as much of that existing building. That would be one area, but there are certain things that we have to keep the sprinklers, the buildings are going to be sprinklered, and that's a large cost. And additional seismic retrofit in the classroom, that's a big cost. And the re-roof of the gym, that's a big cost. Now, there's a big cost difference between a steel roof, which is what I'm hoping for, or a composite shingle roof, right? And there's in between there too. That actually could go higher than that, where types of cedar. So there's always places to pull it out, but
What about the exterior? The
like the site,
site itself.
yeah. These, for example, I would hate for the sake of the conversations that we've had with the tribe and tribal presentation in this project, but if we can get enough of the tribal language outside of the longhouses in the site design, that maybe the longhouses become something of a future, item.
Believe me, I don't like where this is going.
It's always a hard.
I'm a builder. I know what happens, and I'm just anticipating these conversations that we're going to have.
Yeah.
When we bring forward those cost estimates, are we going to be able to delineate between the ones that are the structural requirements and the ones that are kind of bonus features and the ones that are exterior things, so that we have the ability to prioritize?
That's the idea.
Okay.
Itemized out. I think there's going to be more detail and more itemization in the early March estimate than early February.
Yeah.
But I would expect even in the early February estimate, there's going to be some level of itemizing out between kind of what our baseline option was, which was just we have to spend dollars at these locations, and then looking at this saying, okay, here's the extras we want, and having those broken out as well. Right.
Okay.
So now I have to ask the question, well, what is the process for us to move forward from here? Because what we need today to move forward under our current contract is an approval to move in one direction or the other.
And I would assume,
We did that.
no, I would assume that it's these for the vote.
This is actually not this is a
Oh,
work session.
it is work. Okay.
A commitment. This is a advisory to the architect.
Okay, gotcha.
Looking for direction, correct?
And I'm more
We gave them
appreciative that
direction.
you guys are here as the new council because this is where we start
Right.
rolling it over.
Okay.
So typically do you do this as a work session, but we did this one as a special meeting in case you guys did want to vote. So you do have the option.
But if there was a vote, it would be you four.
Right.
Mhm.
Unless we're still here in January.
Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, first of all, if we had a vote, and it would be the four that are here currently seated, it could be undone on January 3rd. So what I would prefer is that we look at this as a consensus. Another thing, if we do a vote, it's what are we voting on? If there's an approval, does that mean that nothing on that can change? Or conceptually, this is, we're kind of in the way and we're going to start doing some more additional development. I want to be careful about doing something as heavy as a vote. Also, especially with the change that's coming in January.
My idea was that the only question they were asking really is between these two concepts, which one did we prefer? And I think we answered that. The whole group did.
Okay, but I think
Most of us did it while Sam was out of the room, but
But we did tell them which of the two concepts we thought we preferred. And I thought that was what this was all about.
it is, and what I'm saying is I would prefer if there's consensus for that, I would be good with it. But if it's a vote, does that mean that the kitchen can't change and,
No.
okay, no, but I'm just saying, but there's a difference in what, when you're voting.
Oh, right.
So what does that mean? So that we know.
And said which one we preferred.
You
And
don't have to take a vote, right? A vote is not mandatory. You have
Just asking the question.
consensus of what we want.
And it was with the condition that certain things would be tweaked and that they would change certain things that we talked about. So I think we've done it.
But my big vote for the first one, or B, is the kitchen. That's pretty much exclusively why I chose that. So I would,
The size.
yes.
Okay.
So that's why I like that one.
But if it were to change, would you prefer the other?
It can't work the other way.
Well, that's if you're looking at it as it's locked in, right? So
I'm locked into a larger kitchen.
yes. But the gym vestibule connection to the lobby with a larger kitchen. So that's kind of our point on, you can choose C with this change. Right? So if C works for you, and you just need a bigger kitchen, then I want you to say C. If what you like about B is the larger kitchen and you don't really care about that connection to the gym vestibule, then I want you to say B, so that's what I think, there are things that will change.
I guess it's consistently B because I don't care that much about the vestibule.
There is another question. That was the one we started with, which was the shelter. I just want to remind everybody that the north or south shelter, but I do kind of agree with Brandon with the idea that at some point that might be one of the items that gets postponed a little bit. I actually used to
Bring that up.
pardon.
Is that, I'm sorry, please
No,
continue.
I'm just saying that of anything that could be postponed, it's that the idea of the natural process of creating that outdoor area, especially with, like the driftwood. That might be quite a long process of figuring out how the driftwood works. I think that's a great idea. But I also see that's an evolutionary idea. So saying that we are going to have an outdoor shelter, longhouse kind of idea is enough for me. And just committing to that we will do it. That's just that point. I feel like when you look at B or C, I feel like I'm going into the big bakery and told I can only pick chocolate or vanilla donuts.
Chocolate.
But I don't get to look at the other items. That's where I'm at. I feel like, yes, we have narrowed down a whole lot of stuff that's been talked about, presented. The majority of those are already built in. I mean, the north wall, we've saved the classrooms, we've got the double wall in the classrooms. All of those were very soundly accepted. All the stuff happening outside, the tribes have been very impactful with what we're doing outside. And I think ideas that are happening in the courtyard or plaza area in the southeast corner are all things that worked really well. None of that really included the interior layout. And this is where we're running into a challenge. The interior layout is the components we've got. They're just not in the right place yet.
Well, I know, I understand that that's how you feel, but I think that it sounded to me like other people were willing to go with this one, with the B.
Willing to go with, yeah.
With tweaks and changes that they will bring back to us, and we get to decide if we think those make sense or don't make sense or are good, so I think we have to progress. I mean, otherwise this could go on for months and it costs more and more money the longer it goes on. And I don't know.
That's not a good reason to not get the best.
Oh, it absolutely is.
I disagree with that.
That's fine. That's
Yeah.
why we're here and we're
and
discussing.
maybe some of us think this is great the way it is, what drawings they've given us.
At this stage,
Yeah.
that's the process.
I'll shut up. Okay.
We never said that.
Shut up, Pam, at all. I'm just saying that I understand that you have a vision in your head and you've done drawings and everything, but and I get that. It's like, it really is important to you, and I get that too, and you have a vision. But we also are a whole community, and there's a whole big process that it's gone through, and we are also limited financially, so we have to get this thing moving if we're going to do it. And so it's hard to give up your vision, but I think at some point you have to compromise and just go with, and that's what we're trying to do here. We're going with what we see here is an idea that they've worked through over and over with tribes and with all the stakeholders. And I think at this point, we've just got to move forward.
I can imagine being in your position and seeing something. Sam's, he's had a vision of this, I think, longer than any of us.
No, I know that.
So I know that's a difficult position. I think I can see this design and I can see it working. I wish I could understand a little bit more what Sam is saying, so we could see if there's some way to accommodate some of those things. But I mean, at this point, looking at these option 2B and give some thought to if that's less of an entrance, but more of a service entrance, emergency exit, maybe alternate gym entrance. If the other part of the building is being used, that might change the configuration of that south portion of the building. But this is answering a lot of questions, I think.
So,
and concerns.
Thank you. And we're professionals up here, and I do want to ensure you that I can see how this can be spun, that we're just putting out there something that is mediocre to be able to appease everybody. We would not put something in front of you that we felt was mediocre. Okay, so from the programmatic requirement we have and from how this building needs to function and the versatility in which it needs to function, both of these designs are winners. From where we sit and other, I mean, it's not just Maya and I, right? We have a whole qualified architects behind us. And I even, the tribe has their architect and we're all on board that this is a very high functioning building for the use. We would not show it to you otherwise. That's what I mean by we're professionals. We just would not do that. We're not going to put, I'm not, certainly not going to put my name on something that I'm not super proud about. And this is, we've all agreed and we've talked about this in the past. This is a legacy project for the city of Cannon Beach, for CETA as the architects, for the Clatsop Nahalem Tribe. There's so much passion from everybody behind this project and wanting to do it right that we are not going to put something out there that doesn't work.
Okay, with that, I'll move on to our final item, which is to figure the order.
Do you have any questions, though? It looked like you had a little bit of quizzical look on your face.
Oh, I usually do.
You didn't have the direction you want from us?
I do. I really wish, I really wish I had everybody's buying its own, it's important to me, not just professionally, but personally. We've come to know you folks, right? And I would love for us all to be on the same page. I just wish we could get there, but the more that we
I'll
talk.
be in this room for the next 3 days.
Yeah.
I just think that it's such a dynamic project and there are so many stakeholders with so many that are polarized even on some certain things that I think the perfect option out there that is perfect for everybody is not I just don't think that's a reality. I don't think it's out there to be found.
I completely agree with you. Yeah, I think we're doing what the best we can do is how I feel.
I agree.
And I'm happy to move forward.
Okay. And I think from our standpoint, we have to move forward in that with that. Otherwise we're starting to backpedal again and we're just never going to be able to get to a solution.
Did you need feedback on the longhouse portion?
It's such a small aspect of what we're talking about, like the other part of it. If we change that in construction documents, it doesn't really matter. So,
And I agree with Sam, that might be something that's like, okay, that's phase 2. Have that at a later date.
we'll continue to show it on our,
Yeah.
and I think from what I heard earlier, and I certainly bought into it, was that having it on the south portion and having it more accessible for people with disabilities and people lugging band equipment around and getting it away from those spruce trees, that stand of spruce trees had its own benefits. So I think we'll continue to show it in that location and not lose sight that we're making that commitment to the tribe. That is something, that if it doesn't happen with this project, it will happen.
That would have been my vote. So, and it didn't sound like anybody was too strongly for the north siding, creek side.
Yeah. Well, we'll continue, we'll push forward and we'll continue to improve the design as we move forward. Okay. As we step into this next stage of schematic design, we're going to be looking primarily at the exterior of the building, but we will continue to make adjustments to this 2B scheme. Continue to listen, continue to change and adapt. You have anything, Maya? We never expected this to be an easy process. We knew that coming into this and we accepted that. And I think this is truly, aside from some of our conversations, internally. This has been probably the most difficult sort of design conversation we've had. And we knew it was coming,
I'm not surprised.
and we knew it was coming.
Okay, are we good now?
Yeah.
Okay, for good of the order, I'll just comment on the fact that I went to the League of Oregon City. Is proposing to do a spring conference at the Seaside Convention Center in April. And I'm glad I went because it was a very, very informative, because what they were asking was for what kind of presentations do we want for our region? And luckily Steve was there. The new mayor from Manzanita, I can't remember her name. Representative from St. Helens, Henry was there. Nobody from Astoria, nobody from Gerhart, but it was a very tight, small group, and we went through a very interesting array of questions that they had on their invitation, if you want to look at those. I did sort of volunteer HRAP because they were looking for possible tours. So they'll be in touch with Kelly at some point. We'll see. We also had quite a discussion about how effective the tours are, because people are not going on the tours as much. One of the ideas was the fact that the spring conference is a smaller conference, generally gets about 200 folks, what they're hoping for. And the idea of doing a big conference dinner was not really in the package. And so they were trying to figure out what else to do. And at that point, they said, why not do the breakout dinners, which was a concept that they've run a couple times, where you sign up. At the mayor's meeting, we had 5 options of free, the reserved tables at various restaurants that could sit 20 people. And so you got together with people you didn't know and had a nice dinner, and that was very effective. So what I was proposing, if that happens, we could probably find a restaurant that would serve Cannon Beach. The other thing was, because Seaside doesn't quite have enough hotels, or the fact that people might want to be staying in Cannon Beach. There might be that kind of connection. So
Is that going to be during spring break?
it's April 25th, I believe.
At the very end of spring break?
Yeah.
And again, it's a smaller conference, but it is a very effective one for the regions. We have housing took up an hour and a half. So we talked a lot about the local housing, and Jeff might be invited to speak there. The housing, I don't know what's that called, the council group or the county group. And they're thinking about inviting a whole bunch of folks to speak on various things. So just be aware of that. I told them that Barb's going to be doing stuff, but I will still be available for their questions. Like finding things, just because I've been working with them for a long time.
Okay.
And I'll let you know on everything that I hear.
Okay, great. Thank you.
The lady's name is Lisa. She's really good. There. And then they also had both of their legislative representatives, lobbyists on site. And those guys are sharp. And so we fed them a whole bunch of stuff. And the guy who is their financial guy lobbyist that goes and does, his focus is on all the legislation that's going to be taxation, revenues and all that kind of stuff. And he is really interested in our food tax.
Good.
So, okay, I don't know where that's going to go, but he's also the one that's fighting for breaking up the TRT requirements.
That was one.
Good.
Yeah.
That's their lead point right now.
Oh, good. That's great.
Does it the right way?
That's all I have. I just reported on that. And I'm glad I went, just because of the connections I have with the folks that were already there. So. Okay,
Thank you, Sam.
anything else for good of the order? Not, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.